Are the levels okay? Awesome. I was thinking about it, the miracle of childbirth. And as I've gotten a little bit older and I've seen friends and family suffer through miscarriages or infertility, you start to realize how true this statement is, right? It's a miracle of childbirth. The body then, as I'm thinking, can perform some truly amazing things. And yet, on the other hand, it can really disappoint us as well. And so this is kind of how we're heading into the topic today, because I'm fascinated by the body and its movement and its function. And we have registered kinesiologist Sarah Zahab joining us. She is the founder of Continuum Fitness. Great to be able to have her here as we head into episode 41 of Living Your Life with Leanne Lang, the podcast brought to you by Extension Marketing. And of course, you can always check out extensionmarketing.com. So Sarah, resume incredibly impressive. Background in human kinetics, a former world and fitness competitor, which your body still looks unbelievable, a sports aerobic competitor, an elite race walking competitor, and my all-time favorite, and this was how we met, is the star of your own DVD series for pre- and postnatal pregnancy. So it's great to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me.
It comes full circle. We've been doing this a long time.
It's been a while. Yeah, it's great.
I'm looking forward to this. And it's funny because you've been watching, you've seen some of the podcasts.
I've seen most of them. Love them all.
I love the guests. Like, everyone's got a story, and I think you don't think that they have a full story, and then you start talking, and it's like, oh my God, this goes so much deeper.
Well, the way you're able to sort of dig deep and get their true stories out, it's incredible. It's just gripping.
I think everyone has a story, and I think everyone has a story that helps inspire other people as well. You know, sometimes it's going to resonate with someone, one topic, and then another. And I think this one really will as well, because I think through your client base, I mean, you've seen this for how many years are you now at this?
20 years. So 20 years. 20
years of doing this. You've seen every kind of person come in looking for help. I know you've dealt a lot with women in pregnancy, pre and postnatal.
Yes.
Do you have kind of like a favorite kind of the client or what you're looking for?
Yeah, I would say, in my practice, I really do enjoy working with the pre and postnatal population. It's really my niche. Of course, I really enjoy working with all populations. I'm really into working with, young girls, because I have two girls and helping them sort of, train and progress. But yeah, I would say those are my two favorite.
I'm sure you didn't think you were going to have favorites when we're going to go back like 30, 40 years. Yeah. I don't think we're going back. We're not even going back 40, so don't even let me know. Okay. I'm like there was no thought process yet. But, okay, you're in an industry right now which has a lot of, I don't want to say we were talking about this, kind of the saturation, right? You really do kind of need to have something that gives you the knowledge, that gives you the expertise, so that people say, okay, this is different from the everyday.
Right.
For you, I mean, the understanding of the human body, like kinesiologist, like explain that exactly. What does that offer?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I first, started in the industry 20 years ago, I think I spent the first 10 years explaining my profession. When I would say I'm a kinesiologist, people would say, what is that? And, now in the last 5 to 10 years, I think, when I say it, people are like, oh, that's cool. Is that kind of like a physio? Is that kind of like a personal trainer? I think there's a little more understanding around, the profession and what it is. But we're a regulated profession in Ontario, and kinesiologists need to undergo, a 4-year undergraduate degree in health sciences. They have a really in-depth knowledge of the human body, anatomy, physiology, biomechanics. We're essentially specialists in human movement. And so in our practice, we're able to, dig a little deeper. We're performing, movement screens and muscle tests to help identify where muscle imbalances are, movement deficiencies are. We're trying to clean up movement and, get muscles firing optimally.
Okay, so when I'm looking at your study and what you're having to know, like the knowledge base, was there thought about going into medicine, or was there thought, once you have this understanding of the human body, like as to what you really wanted to do with that?
Well, the thing with kinesiology is, in my close group of friends, we're about 5 or 6 of us in university, we all went in different paths. So with human kinetics as an undergrad, I did have a friend who went on to medical school, another friend in chiropractic, another friend in, so there's just so many different paths that you can take with this degree. And I chose to go the exercise sciences route. And it's been a great journey.
So the journey didn't start with you going to into university and,
No.
and studying human kinetics. What was the background like? What was childhood like in terms of activity and sport and the understanding of kind of health early on?
Well, so I was born with dislocated hips. And so, the doctor really pushed my mom to put me in dance lessons with the thought that it would sort of strengthen and reinforce the hip musculature. So give me, better stability in through the hips. And so when I was 3 years old, I started dancing, and I was one of those like super busy, on the go kids. And so I was kind of in everything, but mostly dance, and you hit a certain age where, as a dancer, you sort of expand into doing other forms of dance. So you're doing like jazz and hip hop and tap. And, it started with ballet, of course, and that was the foundation, but it got to a point where I was dancing, 5-6 days a week. I was competing in my teens. I joined a Middle Eastern dance group in my teens. So it was mostly, dance was pretty all consuming at that time.
Right, but you were active as a dancer then. I'm assuming that you were watching, you knew nutrition, you knew the foods that you wanted to eat in order to maintain a dancer's body and to have the energy to train 6 days a week.
Yeah, I was very fortunate because my mom, my parents really we ate typical like Middle Eastern healthy food,
the Mediterranean diet.
Pretty much, right? That's all the rage right now is the Mediterranean diet. But that's kind of, we didn't really eat out. We had home cooked meals almost all the time. And I didn't really pay attention to nutrition until I was a little bit older. In my later teens, as a dancer, there's a little bit of pressure to, look a certain way. And as a ballerina, I didn't really have a ballerina's figure, like my knees didn't touch in first position because I was a little bit bow-legged or, they're really looking for the lean kind of straight lines. And I remember there was a time where we were encouraged to, eat salads. And I was like 20, almost 15, 20 pounds lighter than I was now. And I remember thinking, wow, like, do I really have to, that was the point where I was really sort of aware of nutrition and the body. And it was just a very interesting sort of,
And I'm trying to picture you right now, 15, 20 pounds lighter, like the waif that you must have been at that point when you're kind of going through this. But I do look at your figure now, and I can see how the sport aerobic and how the fitness competitor then emerged from that.
Yeah. So I stopped dancing competitively in university in my studies. It's busy. It's hard to dance, 6-7 days a week when you're studying. It's a lot of work. But I remember seeing these competitions on television. It was on TSN. And I first saw sport aerobics, and I thought, wow, that'd be really fun. It would be a nice outlet, a nice transition for me. And so I did 2 years of sport aerobics. And this is dating me, but it was pretty...
It's only dating you when you watch the YouTube videos of the sport aerobic competitions and then recall actually watching them, live.
They're so funny.
You get that. I know, but it was like with the big fake smiles and like the
big smiles but I enjoyed the performance aspect, but it was, you had to have 4 push-ups and you had to have 4 kicks. It was a little more sort of structured. And so I remember seeing a Miss Fitness competition on television. It was on TSN. It was the Fitness Canada pageant or whatever it was. And I thought that would be a nice transition for me because there's a little more flexibility with, the routines. There weren't really strict guidelines as to you had to have this many push-ups or this number of flips. It was just a little more creative. The thing with the fitness competitions, I did that for 6 years, was that there was a bikini round as well. So you were judged on your physique. And then so I was going from being judged on, on just
on your athletic ability,
athleticism, your routine, to being judged on the routine, but also being judged on your physique. And so, there was a bikini round. And you had to do these quarter turns. And so, you were just judged on how lean you were, which was pretty, if you see the pictures, it's pretty interesting because you're wearing 6-inch stilettos and you're trying to look feminine, but not feminine, because you're so lean.
You're so lean, but there's such, you look at your human kinetics background, right? There's an understanding of how each muscle is developed and trained so that it looks like it's supposed to on the human skeleton, right? Like you could, like I'm picturing like the poster on the wall with the muscle structure of a human. That's what you're trying to appear with just a slight skin covering it, skin coating.
So, you can build those muscles and have that, but it's not really going to show unless you're at a specific percentage, like body fat percentage. And so getting to that point is really, really difficult, especially for women.
Why so much so?
I think just hormonally, we're meant to carry a certain percentage of body fat to protect our it's childbearing. I don't think our bodies for many women aren't meant to be. I mean, some women are just naturally lean, but for others it can be a real struggle.
What did you enjoy most about the process of competing and doing these competitions?
It was definitely the routine round. I mean, that was super fun. Dancing, combination of gymnastics, dance elements, strength elements. It was really fun.
I have emceed and hosted a number of fitness competitions, and I have been backstage looking at these girls as they're about to go on stage, almost like so weak because they have been,
dehydrating.
They're so dehydrated. They've gotten to the point where they are literally peaking at the very moment that they're on stage. And I've thought to myself, my goodness, like what they have put their body through to get to this point. Sometimes I think is like, I just feel like saying, do you want a cookie? Like, can you just eat something right now?
They're counting down the seconds.
But they're counting down the seconds until they're able to do that. It's such a, I found it's like a science. They know exactly what they can put in and what they can't.
It's a total science because you're spending, I mean, you don't really look like that a week before the show.
And you don't look like that often a week after the show.
Absolutely not.
I've seen some of the competitors and, it could be 2 months out of the show and I almost don't recognize them because it's a very different person.
Well, and that's what happened to me. I did 6 years of competing, stopped in 2006 and wanted to, so it's very difficult no one really talks about coming out of competition. I think, with a lot of athletes as well, we sort of have that, we assume that these, Olympic athletes have done amazing things, but no one really talks about their transition out of sport, or how are they getting out of that? And emotionally, mentally, it can be a very difficult transition. So yeah, I remember gaining like 15 pounds within a very short period of time, just from eating normally. And exercising normally.
It's just because of what you had deprived the system.
Yeah. So when you're doing, when you're working out for 2 to 3 hours a day and consuming less than 1,200 calories, your metabolism, your hormones, everything sort of takes a beating. So, when you're transitioning out of that, there's a bit of a rebound effect.
Did you know or understand it more because of your background and knew what was going to happen to it, or were you almost a little blindsided?
Totally blindsided. I mean, I was in my own world. I was studying, the human body on one end and then destroying my body on the other end, striving for the perfect body. But, now that I'm in my 40s and now that I've been out of it for so many years, I don't want the perfect body. I want my perfect body. And those two things are very different.
That's a really interesting statement to make. And do you find you use that most often with your clients now? That do they come in looking for the perfect body, or are you able to be able in their mindset say you're going to have your perfect body?
Well, it's interesting. That was the first time I said it.
It's good though. I like that.
But I as a kin, I'm not really working with people who want to lose 10 pounds or want to get super fit. I'm mostly working with people who are coming off of an injury or who are injured or who have a specific condition, because that's where my niche is. That's where my specialty is. I'm not really working with people who want to lose that last 10 pounds,
Which offers a very different mindset when you do have people coming in. So as you know that you're studying the body and destroying your own body at the same time, and you're kind of going through this education process, and you decide to go into the exercise science route. Did you know that it was this aspect that you wanted to get into, as you were mentioning, helping people rehab, dealing with injuries, dealing with that aspect of the body?
Well, I first started, like in university, I started teaching group fitness classes. And I had already been teaching dance for a couple of years to young kids. I really enjoyed that. So my part-time work, during my studies was teaching classes, teaching dance and teaching classes. And back then it was pretty much just like low impact step aerobics. Spinning was just kind of picking up speed. I remember kickboxing coming into play, but my first.
Then we had Taibo.
Yes, I remember that.
Do you want to? We can date ourselves now.
Yeah. But my first 2 years of teaching, I was really only teaching like step and low impact aerobics, and I was teaching like 20, 25 classes a week, and I lost my voice for 7 days from all the yelling. We didn't always have mics. And like microphones and vocal cord damage was a very common injury to aerobic instructors back then, because we were screaming on top of the music in rooms that had terrible acoustics, and so thankfully we started to see the spinning, the kickboxing, the dance fitness craze, and the strength craze, the body pump, which was huge for group fitness instructors because we had a lot more variety and we weren't straining our bodies. But at that same time, in sort of second year university, I started working for Strength Tech for Lauren Goldenberg. I worked actually for Strength Tech for 13 years. And so really enjoyed being in the corporate fitness setting where, we went into facilities, companies and implemented, fitness programs and fitness centers. And it was really interesting. So, for that amount of time, I was working more, in corporate fitness. And so, after that, I sort of transitioned to doing my own thing and yeah. Well,
you're growing up as this is all happening, right? And you're establishing yourself within this business and you're getting, you're getting your own exposure, but you're also then starting to have your own life and you're getting married and you're starting to have children. So was that the shift in and kind of where the next line, the next kind of pathway was that you were going to take?
Well, I think kids change you, and I think, I had my first child while I was still working for Strength Tech, and it was just a natural sort of progression, it was just, it was time for me to shift gears and, really wanted to do my own thing and, have my own business and grow from there, it was just, it was just a natural sort of progression from there.
When did you decide, as you're going through the pre and the post pregnancy, that this was something you were going to document, you were going to share the information as to how you were doing with it? Because those videos, because you are actually pregnant,
I am.
It's not like we put a little pillow and took a picture, right? Like this is your experience. When did that mindset or that business side of you say, okay, this is something I want to be able to produce?
So, I have a clear memory of my first time in the gym. It was during university, and a friend of mine took me into the gym. And although I'd been very fit as a dancer, I hadn't really been introduced to strength training and the strength world. And I'll never forget this. She showed me a lat pull down, and I remember sitting at that machine and performing this lat pull down with 20 pounds of weight, shaking. I mean, I was just tremoring, and I was thinking, wow, and I was sore for days afterwards. And I thought, wow, what an amazing sensation. Like, it was just so cool to be able to be exposed to that. And I was just hooked from there, right? Like, loved being in the gym, loved strength training, love how it transformed your body. And when I was pregnant, I remember looking for something that was safe for pregnant women to do strength-wise. And all I came across were cardio videos or yoga for pregnancy or stretching for pregnancy. There was no real strength training for prenatal women. And so I saw a need. I saw a demand. And so it all came together. I mean, it's just a friend who, XC Zone that did the filming for us, and I did such a great job and loved the whole process, putting it together. I was 36 weeks, 32 or 34 weeks pregnant when we filmed the DVDs. And I had two friends, with me doing it, and it was just such a fun experience. And I loved being able to expose strength training to prenatal women.
How important do you think that it is? So, I mean, you've got women right now who are looking to be able to conceive, or are a couple weeks in, or hope, waiting for that 12-week kind of go ahead. You've got some that are 5 months in and are looking to still contain these workouts. What is your outlook on being able to do that while pregnant?
Well, it's interesting because the Canadian Society for Exercise Physiology has just released new guidelines for, pregnancy and postpartum period. And, we're seeing, the national guidelines, encouraging women to be active. We know that exercise is extremely important for pregnant women. We're seeing lower incidences of gestational diabetes, of, high birth weight, of, complications during birth. We know that babies born to exercising mothers are born with healthier cardiovascular systems. So we're seeing that, at birth, these babies are born healthier, with healthier hearts because their moms exercised. And this is even more robust in women who are exercising more. And we're even seeing this 30 days after the babies are born. We're still seeing those healthier hearts because their moms, performed exercise throughout their pregnancy. So we know the importance, and we're just now seeing the guidelines, including strength training, as part of a healthy pregnancy.
Because I watch Instagram and I look at, and I get sucked into it. I'm often amazed when I see like almost full-term pregnancies and moms doing CrossFit or kind of doing the chin-ups. Do you find that there can be a healthy way of doing it and a way that you say, listen, this you've got to monitor a little bit?
Yes, I agree. We don't have enough studies that are, and I'm a really big evidence-based person, right? Like I need to see the studies behind. We don't have a lot of studies of women exercising intensely during pregnancy. So I am not going to prescribe intense exercise if someone isn't ready for that. Or pregnancy is not a time to make great strength gains. It is a time for coasting. You're maintaining your strength. You're just trying to stay healthy, great posture, great alignment, good core strength. Let's get you fit for the delivery because that's something that you really need to train for. But it's not the time to train for a marathon or get a PB in your squat or deadlift, I'm really a big believer of less is more. And we're seeing, it's interesting, we're seeing a lot of boot camps and, these high intensity classes geared towards the postnatal woman, like you give birth, you've gotten the 6-week clearance, join a baby mommy boot camp, and I just feel that that's not appropriate. We need to have, just like you need to transition out of sport, you need to transition appropriately out of, childbirth is like the biggest workout of your life. And there's so many physiological changes that occur in that time that we need to respect each woman's unique recovery process and not expect her to be ready to join a boot camp class at the 6-week postpartum mark.
I think there's also so many women that carry the pregnancies so differently, right?
Exactly.
Like you have friends that are nauseous and they have the morning sickness. That like we all experience things so differently. I mean, and I'm looking at the two of us who are very similar builds and both really quite athletic. I gained 55 pounds with both of my pregnancies. I worked out almost every day. Like I worked out, and I wasn't one of those, girls that needed the pickle craving or the ice cream craving or the trip to McDonald's. I ate healthy. My only craving was vinegar. Like I would eat vinegar like it was soup. Like I would cut up these tomatoes and then pour vinegar and then eat it like soup, kind of like a bowl of cereal. Like for me, that was as bad as it got. And yet exercising every day, eating really healthy, I gained 55 pounds. I have a girlfriend who did absolutely nothing except, hung out on her couch, ate McDonald's and fast food every day and gained 18 pounds and recovered with like a week afterwards and looked the exact same. And it took me 9 months to get back to even somewhat, resemblance of what I felt that I was. Like, why are we made so differently that it really is individual as to what your body will and won't do?
That's it. I mean, you really have to take into consideration so many different factors.
This podcast is brought to you by Extension Marketing. They're a new breed of marketing agency that acts as your virtual marketing department, designing and implementing cost-effective marketing strategies that will grow your business. I can speak to this personally, as I've been using the Extension Marketing team to help me launch and grow my business. Founder Pat Whalen has been a lifesaver for me, a genuine coach, guiding me along the way into uncharted territory. Tell them you're a friend of the show and receive a free 1-hour consultation. Check them out at extensionmarketing.com.
What is your fitness level going into your pregnancy, right? How is your nutrition throughout your pregnancy? People are able to metabolize things quite differently, I was one of those people who really struggled to gain weight during pregnancy. And others have the ability to, gain weight quite easily without any...
Sarah, I gained 55 pounds. Okay, I mean, that's a lot. My breasts were like double D's. Like, they were coming out of everywhere. I mean, I had no idea. And I'm on television at this point, right? We already look bigger on television. And I was like straight on with the camera. It looked like I was,
I'm sure you wore it very well.
Well, I really don't. I look back and I'm like, everyone was really nice and all, but I was twice the person. And yet, I was doing all the right things. It plays with your head.
It really does. Pregnancy is, I mean, and I sort of compared it to competing, mentally it's pretty challenging to, to gain weight, and that in between time, post-birth and, maybe the first 6 to 12 months can be very difficult for women mentally, to be at a place where you need to be carrying a little bit of this extra weight. If you're breastfeeding, you're not really, the emphasis is on baby. You don't really have an opportunity to focus on yourself until years later. It took me like 6 years to get to get back to my pre-pregnancy shape, and it took a while to kind of, get comfortable with that.
I think you want people to realize that there are issues, and one of the things that you deal with a lot of your clients is the wall separation. And I know we've done a lot of segments on this, and I'm going to say it, the
diastasis.
See,
you can say diastasis too.
Yeah, no, but I was like, I'll get there. Why is this so critical for you? I know it's something that you really emphasize while pregnant and working out, as to how to be able to deal with the, the stomach, and the stomach muscles and lining. What for you, what do you want people to realize, and what are the consequences if not?
So years ago, 10, 15 years ago, we weren't really talking about diastasis. It was just kind of called mommy tummy. It was a thing that happened. We weren't really talking about it, but it's really, I'm really pleased to see, mainstream media sort of addressing it. We're discussing it. We know there was a recent study that found that 100% of women in their third trimester will get that diastasis, will get that separation. So it's essentially a separation of the abdominal wall. So that topmost layer of the abdomen is called the rectus abdominis, and it stretches or pulls away from its attachment, the midline of the body, during pregnancy. We see this in other individuals as well, but mostly in postnatal, in prenatal, in that third trimester, because of the stretch that's being placed on the tissues. And so we also know that at 8 weeks postpartum, if you have a diastasis, you're more likely to have a diastasis 1 year postpartum. So that first 8 weeks is a pretty critical healing time for the tissues. And we know that this condition doesn't really just go away on its own. Sometimes it does, but you're really likely to have it a year later if you have it, a couple of months postpartum. And so what we're seeing is, women with this condition, with a diastasis, are more at risk of, pelvic instability, we're seeing low back pain. Maybe we're seeing a weakening of the deep abdominal musculature. We're seeing these things that are directly attributed to the tissues being kind of stretched. So we have really found we're able to address it. It's a multifactorial, approach. We're not just looking at strengthening your deep core muscles. We're looking at a lot of other things like addressing your posture and alignment, addressing how you're breathing, addressing how you're managing intra-abdominal pressure, also addressing the pelvic floor. There's so many things that come into play. And for us, it's really about finding what the primary driver is. So, is it your posture that's causing it to stay kind of stretched? Is it how you're breathing that's putting a lot of pressure on the system? Is it the muscles that are weak? Like, what is it?
I mean, and for any woman right now who's going, okay, I had kids a couple years ago, I had kids 20 some years ago, could they still be seeing this effect? I mean, if you go into almost like a plank position, would it just be like, you don't even want to look down. There's the stomach kind of it.
So 2/3 of women will get this doming effect in the abdomen. So if you perform an abdominal crunch, you see a little dome. It looks kind of like a football, like a kind of coming together of the sides and a bulge at the top of the abdomen, like a bulging look. And so you may see it during a crunch, you may see it during a plank, but essentially if you're bulging or if you're doming, as we would call it, that's putting too much strain on the tissues. So when we're looking at an exercise plan, we're looking to avoid the doming of the abdomen. So that's why, there's so much conflicting information online.
That's why you're saying like at 6 weeks when someone's signing themselves up to go into a boot camp and they haven't healed properly and they're going into these trying to get their abs back and they're going into these plank positions and things are just falling.
Breaking things down. Yeah, breaking things down and not able to heal fully, and also low back pain, hip pain, neck pain. There's a lot of compensation that occurs, a lot of compensatory strategies. And it is really tough because there's a lot of conflicting information online, right? It's, do a crunch, don't do a crunch. Planks are great. Planks are bad. Do this. There's just so much. But with my clients, essentially, if I can just guide someone, that your main rule should be, if you have this condition, just avoid the doming, avoid the bulge. So if you do a plank on your toes and you see the bulging, drop down to your knees or try a different exercise. If you're doing a crunch and you see the bulge, try a different exercise, modify it, regress, short term, until you can give those tissues a chance to heal, until you can retrain the system to correct those inefficiencies, whatever we need to focus on, and get you back to a point where you're aligned and strong and functional.
Can you do it 20 years out?
Absolutely. It may take a little more time. And so the biggest thing for me is if I have someone, starting off their prenatal journey, it's ideal because I can really guide them throughout their pregnancy. We can avoid putting excessive strain on the tissues. We can really help them to prevent, an excessive diastasis, and then we can help guide them transition out of that really safely. But the best thing to do is just avoid putting excessive strain on the tissues, as much as you can. So avoid the doming, avoid the bulging, modify short term. But yeah, 20 years later, absolutely. Because we see other people with this condition as well, people who gain weight quickly. I'm actually seeing it in a lot of young gymnasts, young athletes, and they come to me and I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel, and all of them say, well, I'm doing 100 crunches a day, or I'm doing 200 crunches a day because that's what our training, that's what our coaches are telling us to do. And so with that repetitive action, there's a lot of strain that's being placed on the tissues. And
as I'm thinking, I think Jamie must have done a couple hundred the other day, right? Like I have a young, so to be on the lookout for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And everyone's born with this condition, with a diastasis. And it's usually around age 7 where 7 or 8, where things kind of sort of come together a little bit. But yeah, I check everybody for it. I check everyone, yeah, for sure.
for you, a successful pre and post pregnancy is what? Like for you, how do you like to see someone get through it in a healthy manner, getting in their workouts, having a healthy pregnancy, and then being able to recover? What does that look like for you?
I think it really depends, and I think, it really depends on my client. So someone who's really struggled with conceiving may be happy just walking and doing some light strength training throughout their entire pregnancy and feel really great about that, and have a healthy pregnancy, a delivery, and be okay with being 30 pounds over and not be concerned about that because they were able to actually accomplish that amazing feat. And for others, I'm working with a lot of athletes who are pregnant, very competitive athletes, and so for them it's really different. They're not going to consider a successful pregnancy and postnatal period if they haven't had a chance to exercise as a great deal. So I think it really
are these women who are looking to be able to stay as competitive following pregnancy? I mean, you look at like a Serena Williams, who's able to get back into a Grand Slam final a year after having a child. Like,
it's incredible.
It's amazing what the body is able to do that sense.
It is. And I think that conversation needs to take place, that you just don't know we don't know how nauseous you're going to be, how in pain you're going to be. In some women, the pelvis is shifting. I mean, that pubic symphysis, that cartilaginous joint in the front of the pelvis is opening up. I mean, it's got to shift a little bit to allow for baby to come through that birth canal. So, and in some women that can be very uncomfortable. So for me, a successful and healthy pregnancy is a pregnancy that's somewhat pain-free, where you were able to maintain some form of movement throughout, have a delivery that you're where the outcome is a healthy baby, whether it's a vaginal delivery or a C-section, and really honor your unique recovery process. So I know that's a pretty broad,
It is, but it's so broad because we are so individualized. And you were saying, I think right before we started talking, we've come so far in so many other sciences and in so many other aspects of medicine. And yet we are still, you said, like in the Stone Ages when it comes to
women's reproductive health.
Yes.
And I feel, I don't know, I just, struggling to conceive is a very, it's a very difficult thing, it's not easy. Infertility is not easy. So I feel like all kids are miracles, it really is. And you started off by saying, it's a miraculous thing.
But, we have the miraculous thing because our body has taken us through this transition, and yet it can disappoint us as well. And not only when it comes to, childbearing years or infertility, but you deal with people whose bodies are failing them in other aspects. I mean, we can move from pregnancy to injuries to immobility. I mean, what is it for you to have an individual come in with, like they feel broken?
Yeah, that's kind of, work with a lot of people who are kind of broken in some way, but it's really about understanding the body, right? And understanding where the muscle imbalances are, where the movement deficiencies are, where the breaks in alignment are. How is there, so when we're, in our practice, we're looking at all of these things. In our assessment, we're performing manual muscle tests to test the strength of specific muscles.
Okay, what is the most common thing that you see?
I would say low back pain.
Okay.
Low back pain is probably the most common.
Low back pain to the point where they're in so much discomfort that daily activity, going to work, exercise, or a broad spectrum.
Varied across the spectrum. And so it's 80% of people at some point in their life are going to have low back pain, right? It's a very common condition. But we really want to sort of understand, because it's a very unique, the low back pain could be due to weak, deep core muscles, or it could be due to poor alignment. It could also be due to non-optimal breathing mechanics. It could be due to a tightness somewhere along the chain. It could be due to their movement mechanics. So maybe the way they're lifting their baby is not optimal. Maybe their deep core muscles, like their transverse abdominis, that deepest core layer, isn't firing optimally, or their multifidus, for another example. Maybe their posture isn't great, and so the way that they're standing is putting excess strain. Maybe the pelvis is tilted forward in an anterior tilt, which puts a lot more strain on the lumbar spine. So we can't just sort of blanket, we can't just say you have low back pain, your core is weak. We really need to take a look at the body as a whole. And that's what we're doing in our practice. And we also have athletic therapists, in addition to registered kinesiologists and strength coaches, who can treat the low back pain or any other injury that they may have, and work closely with us to create a customized plan that's going to help address all of their unique issues. So they can get their treatment, and then they can get their customized program to help with getting stronger, getting more mobile, realigning, correcting their breathing mechanics, or whatever it is that may be contributing, or what may be the primary driver to their low back discomfort.
Which is not something they were coming in thinking about.
That's really interesting that you say that.
Shifting the mindset.
Because we have a lot of people that come in that want to do, I want to do my CrossFit, but often we're dialing it back quite a bit. You can have the best program, but if you're not executing it well, you're not going to get the most out of it. And so we're really big on, proper execution of each exercise, and, it has to be purposeful.
So you've got lower backs. You were talking a lot about recovery rehabilitation. So you have athletes or just individuals, knee surgeries, ACLs,
Absolutely.
A cross section of everything.
Yeah. And I love the fact that we have our athletic therapists on site, because we're able to help people along their health continuum. So if they're an athlete and they get injured, maybe they're at this point, but we can bring them up here. Or if someone's just looking to start for the first time, we're really able to help people along the spectrum with therapy and the assessment and the training as well.
Continuum Fitness, as you said, the continuum of health, and that the Continuum Fitness is the name of the business. What is the successful client enter and client exit then for you? Because you have these relationships with people, and sometimes people say, "Oh, I've been with my trainer for so many years."
Yes.
That's not necessarily always the case for you. It's almost like you want to see people come in, reestablish themselves, and then sometimes exit.
Move on. Yeah, absolutely. I have maybe 50% of my clients that are regular clients that have been with me. I have some that have been with me for over 10 years. But I'm also I do a lot of bridging the gap between therapy and return to sport. So they may, see a therapist for some treatment, see me for a short period of time, and move on to one of our other coaches, who do more sort of high performance elements. Or they're with another coach, they get pregnant, they come see me, and after baby, they're going back. So there's a little bit of kind of shifting back and forth.
Have you seen a lot of successful come in pregnant, have successful training, have baby, get back? Are we seeing that more?
We are, and I think a lot of it comes down to women understanding that it doesn't have to happen at the 6-week postpartum mark. It's going to happen, but if you take that time to respect the body and not push too hard in that immediate postpartum period, you will have a recovery. You will able to.
What part of the body do we least respect?
Probably the mind, we're not able to listen, to our bodies. We like to push through pain. We like to, push, and no matter what, it's important to really listen to the body is an amazing system, and often it will give us cues when something is kind of off, but we are so not in tune with our bodies. We're just not as connected as we should be, that, it can often lead to injury or dysfunction. But yeah, if we want a better answer, maybe,
No,
the
it's
core,
a really
the pelvis.
good. No, it is a good answer. It's the real answer. We don't listen.
Sometimes.
You know what, though? I'm going to say something.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I've been, I don't know if it's my life circumstances or, and I've been very vocal. Like I listened to my body when I got shingles and said, my body's tired. I can't do the 3:30 a.m. wake up call anymore. And then recently, and I actually wrote about this in one of my newsletters, I'm sitting a lot now, which I never did. I mean, that 4-hour show, I mean, you would see me.
Oh, you were running around.
I was running like crazy. Like I was running to the set and then running back to my desk and then running, like when we'd have a segment, I'd like run to the bathroom and commercial break and then change and then come run back onto the set. Like I wish I had tracked what a show, like how many miles I did over a show. Yeah. Now these days I'm like sitting at my computer, I'm writing a lot more, I'm emailing back, I'm doing calls. I am so sore from sitting. Like I am so sore from sitting. And the other day I'm like, I'm bitching about it. And that, and then it's like, listen to your body. I moved my entire desk from the dining room. I now have it in the kitchen.
Amazing.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stand at the kitchen count at the island, and I'm going to work that way standing. I brought everything over, brought it to the kitchen, and then what do I do? Like I'm starting, like I'm maybe like 5 minutes into like typing stuff in the kitchen, and then I like pull over the chair to sit down because I'm like, oh, there's a chair, and then Tony came upstairs because he works out of the house, and he's like, what are you doing? He's like, you were in the kitchen so that you were standing. Like it was just such an immediate, like I made the change. I'm going to stand. And then I pulled the chair over. But I'm giving it a week to see if I'm actually going to feel the difference because I'm listening. Like my body doesn't feel like it did before.
Yeah. And so
I get I get the listening to your body. Most people don't.
You do. And I think it's great that you've experienced this because you can relate to probably 70% of your viewers, right? Who are seated at a workstation.
And I couldn't understand it either, that they'd be sitting all day and then didn't want to, after sitting all day, go out and move. Because it's like, okay, you've been sitting, go and exercise. But no. The more you sit, you're exhausted and you don't want to go after sitting all day and go move because everything is sore and it hurts. Yeah. Like I think I've apologized to so many people to be like, I'm so sorry that I assumed that after sitting all day you would want to go do this. Yeah. You don't. You really don't.
It's exhausting. But what's important is we know that, there was a time where we were saying sitting is the new smoking, like it
is bad.
But standing for 8 hours a day isn't that great either. What's more important is incorporating bouts of movement throughout your day. It's the lymphatic system that gets really stagnant when you're not moving. So if you can move for 2 to 4 minutes on every hour, then you can keep the system moving and you're more likely to be in less pain. So setting an alarm every hour, shifting from seated to standing. There's no one perfect seated posture. It's how dynamic can you make the posture? Lean forward, sit back, cross your legs, stretch it out, twist around, stand up, move around. Like it's not just about sitting properly or standing properly.
Okay, so it's not,
it's mixing it up and making it as dynamic as possible.
You want to see people almost dancing. You're gonna see people at their desks now, like little timers. Turn to the side.
There's so many apps. I'm sure there's an app for, how to move throughout your workday seated.
If someone hasn't invented that yet, it should be.
There you go.
Yeah, you'd have a lot of people downloading that as they're sitting at their desk for 8 hours.
Yeah.
So I was reading through the bio, and I knew the fitness background. I knew it because we had done all the stuff on the pre and postnatal videos. But then I started to see the race walking.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So and this came later.
It did come later. So I, in teaching all those classes, power walking was one of my favorite classes to teach. I just thought it was like the best thing to teach. You could get outside like during your workday. I loved walking. You can walk and, get some fresh air, get a good workout at the same time. And I just thought it was just so awesome. So I love teaching power walking. I loved walking because I wasn't really a great runner, at the time. And I was married into this running family, like my husband's an amazing runner. He was a triathlete, an Ironman triathlete. My brother-in-law is probably the greatest runner in the
Yeah, I'm going to get to Ray in a second.
I think, yeah. So walking was my thing. And shortly after my first was born, I found this group called the Bytown Walkers. And they had a great coach, and he'd coached a 3-time Olympian. And that was my thing, helping me get, transition. It was really great. And I really enjoyed, the training.
Does it hurt your hips?
It's interesting. A lot of people ask that. And when I started, maybe 8 years ago, I remember maybe there was a little bit of discomfort, but it didn't last long. It really it looks funny. And it's super technical, right? So
it does look a little off.
Yeah. We get laughed at, all the time, but.
Well, it's because it's almost like, why don't you just run?
I know.
So close to
but then when I can walk faster than you're running.
Okay. So let me ask. So you mentioned Ray. Well, you mentioned your brother-in-law, and I'm going to say Ray.
Yeah.
Because his story.
Oh, it's fascinating.
It's fascinating.
It's just.
I'm going to actually, when he's in town, I'm going to have to track him down and sit in on this chair. He is like, his run, like he runs across deserts. Like he's an ultra. It's not even like an ultra marathoner anymore, because it's like it's gone way past that.
It's beyond that.
What would his title be? Like the ultra.
He's probably like an adventurer. And he's probably gonna kill me for not knowing the exact term. Yeah, he's just an all-round incredible human being.
Right, but like he leads. Like, I mean, we're talking one of the top in the world of doing these long distance across the desert, across terrains that you would never think an individual is going to go run and then be gone for days at a time,
months at a time. So I mean, he's run across the Sahara Desert when that was never done before. It's been documented. Running the Sahara, you should go watch that. He holds the world record for the fastest crossing across the geographic South Pole. He's run across, in hot climates, but he's also run in freezing cold climates as well. Lake Baikal, the Gobi Desert. I mean, he's just done it all, and it's all come back to a point for him where it's all about his charitable organization, Impossible to Possible, where he's inspiring youth to bring about change, in the world. And
because it didn't start like that.
It didn't,
right?
No.
It kind of starts like
Yeah, I mean, he was a pack-a-day smoker, drinker, sedentary individual, and went from being that to an incredible runner in a short period of time. And he'll tell you, it's 90% of it is mental, and the other 10% of it is in your head. It's all kind of mental.
Yeah, I find his story like fascinating.
It really is.
For the two of you, could you go for him a run and you a walk and be able to have, like, would that work? Like, could you do it? Would you be going incredibly fast and you're walking, and he would be going incredibly slow?
Only if he's going incredibly slow. I mean, that's only happened a couple of times when he was running across the Sahara, and he was, it was a slow day, and I was able to walk next to him. But no, he's still quite fast. We don't train together a lot. Just like I don't really train with my. It's kind of difficult, right? It's not easy to. But I can, with my friends, if they're running, I can walk next to them, no problem. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Race walk, for sure.
You can race walk while your friends run and stay with the group and amongst the conversation.
Yeah. So my fastest 5K, walking 5K, is 28 minutes, 28 something. So a lot of people will probably run.
A 5K run.
I know, it looks pretty funny, but.
No, but.
Yeah. So I haven't really been doing race walking, and
it's part of your history, right?
Yeah, it's part of my history, part of my journey. It was great. Yeah.
That's impressive. I'm looking at that time.
Still doing the math.
I do a 20. Well, no, I would do a 5K in about 25 minutes.
That's pretty fast, though. That's pretty good. Yeah, 25 minutes. That's a 5-minute K.
Yeah, I think that's because I was being timed, and it was one of those, races. Ask me to go around if I leave my house to go for a 5K, I'm probably coming in at around 30-something, right? So
it's amazing how in a racing situation you can find it, right? You can find the energy and the will, the mental strength to push through.
Would you say that you see that a lot with people who find a way, find the will, even injured, and you're trying to tell them, okay, we have to step back, and yet people sometimes they don't want to feel it, they don't want to see it, that they're doing because they want to compete.
They do. It's really tough. And I think the people who are really successful are the ones that are on board with the plan, the ones that trust the process and trust that their bodies need a little bit of that brain retraining, right? That neuromuscular retraining, working on really connecting with certain areas before. Because if there's a break in the system, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So you kind of need to focus on, where those breaks in movement are and work on correcting that.
With the kinesiology background, where do you think we still have major improvements to make on how we train or what we do with the human body?
Overall, in general, it's prevention. I mean, we need to be, including kinesiology in all health benefit plans. We know that those who are active are going to put a lot less strain on our system 20, 30, 40 years down the road, right? As an active individual, you are less likely to have diabetes, Parkinson's, cancers. I mean, exercise is going to prevent a lot of conditions down the road. And we have a very reactionary medical system, right? We do. And so there isn't, in my opinion, enough emphasis placed on prevention. And exercise is a preventative medical, we all need to be moving, and we need to be encouraged to move in a way that, it's not sort of like the person who's taking an hour out of their workday to exercise shouldn't be looked down upon. Everybody should be, workplaces should be encouraging, movement and activity and fitness and strength. And I mean, it's how we're going to prevent musculoskeletal conditions. It's how we're going to prevent low back pain. It's how we're going to prevent.
Do your daughters realize, because my daughters realize that mom's hour of, Saturday morning I get up and I go, or, mom's hour is actually better for the family. Yeah. It's so hard but that hour taking to invest in going to work out or getting exercise in makes us better people.
Yeah.
Better parents.
It's true. Or maybe
in the long run. And I hope that they see it.
Right.
That it's going to be part of their everyday life.
That's it.
Are you like that with your daughters?
And I'm not, there's a lot of people who absolutely need it. It's their outlet. It's their therapy. I can go a week or two without, if I get it. And maybe it's more of, like on the weekends, it's more of a 20-minute thing. I'm going to go out for a 20-minute run/walk, whatever it is. And that was one of the reasons why I created the postnatal DVD with baby. So it's a workout that's done with your baby, right? You're using your baby as a weight. And I think, so it has to start at a very early age where, you're working out maybe with your children, and later on, your children need to see that you are taking your health as a priority. And families who can work out together, and it doesn't have to be an hour. It can be 10 or 15 minutes. It can be whatever. It can be a family walk. It can be a hike. It can be, you just doing like a few push-ups or whatever it is at home. But whatever works for you, it is something, where your children need to know that, your health is important, and them seeing you make your health a priority, I think just guides them, and helps them to understand that we're guiding a future generation.
Your daughters see it.
They do. Mm-hmm. They do. And they are active, but they're actually a lot more active in an unstructured way. They play outside a lot. They're not in anything competitive yet. They're just, they dance or swim, or, they do one or two sort of structured activities a week, and the rest of the time they're just playing.
Do you have good neighbors that are that say, okay, they're out playing?
Yeah.
I find we've lost that. When we were growing up, it was you went out and played, and you came home when the lights came up on the streets, and you came in for dinner, right? And you went and made forts and trees, and you did things. For me, it's the judgment of other parents if you're not standing over top of your child as they're doing that, and that's where I find that we lose it.
Yeah, we're very, very fortunate.
Go out.
Yeah, because
I'm not going to supervise you at all times.
Yeah, it depends on their age, but no, we're very, very lucky. There's a lot of kids in our neighborhood, and in the summer, spring, summer, fall, everyone's knocking on each other's doors and they're out for hours at a time. And I realize that that's not every neighborhood. But you can still encourage your child to knock on a friend's door and get out there. Maybe you supervise a bit at the beginning, and once they get to a place where they're a little comfortable, you can kind of trust that, or it gets confined to a park or a backyard.
They're not knocking on each other's doors. They're messaging them through whatever game and app that they're on, and then have to decide if they're lazy enough or want to actually leave the confines of the house and the technology. That's the technology that kind of shifts things.
It's true. It's true.
What are you looking forward to most as to where this profession can go, or the changes that you can make with people?
Well, if you had asked me 10 years ago, I would have said, well, for me to say that I'm a kinesiologist without having someone say, what is that? You know? So love how the profession has grown and expanded. But honestly, I mean, we're a regulated profession. I see some people with private, benefits would cover. I would love to see benefit coverage across the board. I mean, that's kind of what I would love to see, kinesiologists being recognized for their influence on, health and fitness and preventative medicine.
So it's not covered? Like
some people do have coverage, but most do not. However, everyone can claim kinesiology services as a medical expense. So come tax time, it can be claimed as a medical expense.
Just a little bit different than...
If you have like a health benefit plan, some people may have coverage. And I know that some companies provide like a health spending, account. So I would just encourage people to look at their plans and see if they have kinesiology coverage, and maybe just ask their, reach out to their HR department and inquire. And I think the more people we have asking and inquiring, maybe we'll see a little shift.
Well, I think so. I think the outlook right now is if things aren't working quite right, that I thought you saying like the less is more, and getting to the root of where the issue is
why.
being caused, the why, and then being able to work and trigger that so that it's stronger, so that the rest of the body then aligns itself, which essentially is what it is you're trying to figure out. People can find you where, like what, Continuum Fitness, but there's an umbrella. There's a lot of people that are working with you guys.
We have a great team. I'm really happy with our team. We've got, athletic therapists, kinesiologists, exercise physiologists, and strength coaches. We're at continuumfitness.ca. We're on Instagram, Continuum Fit. We're in Ottawa, Westboro, Ottawa. We're on Facebook.
Because the studio is beautiful.
Thank you.
There's a lot of room. There's a lot of things that are going on there.
Yeah, thanks.
when we went to tape. And also, I should remind you, like, if you're looking for, you have the podcast and the video right now, but if you head to the website, we did a couple of segments really focusing on the diastasis. That would be, and we had everything. We had like 4 segments on what to do, how to see it, what you're looking for.
That's it.
What exercises to incorporate. So if you're looking at this, the best thing to do is head to my website under the trainer workouts. Sarah's comes in under there, and there's about 4 segments that you did right when I was kind of starting to launch and doing everything.
It was so exciting.
And it was great too when we had a number of different segments back at the show. So continuumfitness.ca, and you can find it. It's Churchill.
We're right on Churchill.
Is that right? It's Churchill,
we
right?
are.
Yes. Right before you get to Westboro, like right before you get to Richmond. So it's great to be able to see. Thanks so much. And
Thanks,
I love
Leanne.
it, Sarah. Thank you, because I know like you were talking about some of the podcasts and you're like, I saw this one and this really kind of resonated with me. So I really appreciate that. And this is a great encouragement for those that are listening. Please like, share, subscribe, share your stories. Let me know if there's things that you actually are looking to have on. I'm going to have to track you down to get into your brother-in-law, Ray. Yeah, because that's one incredible story too. And just to be able to help share the Living Your Life with Leanne Lang podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day.